Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodeau, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number one grocery store
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Good Vibes. I'm Martin False, and joining us as always, Debbie Cox-Canova, and she is in the house right now.
Hi.
Debbie, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Everything cool?
Everything's good. Yeah.
All right, good. Melodious, cool.
Melodious, got some sleep.
All right, that's a good segue because sleeping as a superpower.
Yeah.
Never quite heard of that, but it is true. If you don't sleep, you're done.
We already know this, right?
Yeah.
And so today I'm going to drop some really scary statistics on you, okay? But hopefully at home, especially if you are one of these people who lives by the maxim, I'll sleep when I'm dead, hopefully this conversation will be life-changing for you so that you can understand that the body of science that we have, the research that we have on sleep says that is a horrible piece of advice that will absolutely shorten your life, okay? So the information comes from a sleep scientist called Matt Walker, and he talks about all of the different ways that sleep deprivation can impact your brain and your body and how it's impacting our society as a whole. And he started his conversation, he did a TED Talk on this, by saying the first thing that you need to know is that men who get 5 hours of sleep as compared to those who have 7+ hours of sleep have significantly smaller testicles than their counterparts.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you get 4 to 5 hours of sleep as a man, you have the testosterone levels of someone 10 years your senior. So there's this critical measurement of health, which is our fertility system, that is aged by a full decade by sleep deprivation. And in females, there is a significant impairment in fertility as well with sleep deprivation. So that's a way to kind of get your attention, right?
Yeah, well, the ratings just went up.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to know that it definitely impacts your fertility system, but there are so many other areas in which the sleep deprivation can actually impact you. Learning is one of them. So they actually took 2 groups of people in an experiment, one who was allowed to have 8 hours of sleep, and then another that got to have no sleep for a night. So they were in a lab, lights on, no sleep at all, no naps, no caffeine. So everyone was significantly miserable. The next day, they took these 2 groups into an MRI scanner, and they gave them a list of things to learn. And then they took snapshots of the brain as they did this. Can you guess the group that had no sleep versus the group that had 8 hours, the level of learning impairment in the group by percentage? Like what level of learning impairment do you think they suffered from not having sleep?
50%?
Close, 40%.
Okay.
40, which by the way is significant. This is a conversation that if you're a college student, I know that when I was in college, there were a lot of all-nighters, right? There were, sleep was kind of a thing, like I'll get, 1 or 2 hours before an exam and I'll just be studying. That can actually have a significant influence on, so 40% is the difference between acing a test and failing it, right? So this is something we really need to pay attention to, especially in our education population, because not only in college, but in elementary school, a lot of our kids are not getting enough sleep, and then they're going to school and they're trying to learn, and this is what's happening. And the reason that it's happening is that there is 2 structures on the side of the brain called the hippocampus, and the hippocampus is sort of like, you can think of it as an information inbox. So the job of the hippocampus is to take in information and actually make new memories. And so when they hooked up the brain to electrodes, what they found is that in people who were not getting enough sleep, in someone who's getting a lot of sleep, you can see a lot of beautiful activity in the hippocampus as it absorbs those memories. But in people who do not get enough sleep, there was no significant actual activity in the hippocampus. It was almost like the ability to retain new memories wasn't there. And what they're finding out, what they've known for a while, is that you need to get sleep after learning something to sort of hit the save button on what you've learned. But new research is also showing that you actually need to get sleep beforehand as well to prime the brain for learning. So it's kind of like a sponge, right? If you don't actually get enough sleep, the sponge is sort of waterlogged, if you will. The memory circuits are waterlogged so that you cannot gain any new information. This is really, really important. And one of the things they did when they found they hooked up to the electrodes is they found that there are these beautiful, powerful brain waves that they saw. And on top of those brain waves were these sleep spindles, these little electric, powerful things. And the job of all of that is to take the memories that you get from that vulnerable short-term memory and transport them to the long-term memory where they can be more protected. Now, this is interesting because what they've found is that that whenever one of the physiological markers of aging in people is that there's cognitive decline, right? Their memory isn't as good and all of that. Well, what they're finding is that also in people who are aging, the quality of their sleep is compromised. So especially that deep state of sleep starts to get compromised as we age. And now they're finding out that it's not just a coincidence, that actually the compromising of the sleep could be a cause for the decline in the brain.
I was going to ask you, we could talk about it when we come back out of the break. You say you need 8 hours to perform well for the next 16 hours, but what if it takes you 10 hours to get 8 hours
Yeah,
of sleep?
and we've talked about that
people wake
before.
up.
Yeah, so
I wake up all the time and I go back. My deepest sleep is the second round of sleep.
Yeah. And so it's really important to understand that about yourself because we've talked about how it's different for everybody. We say 8 hours and there's research on the 8 hours. But what we know is that even though it's different for every person, because some people it may be 7 hours, for some people it may be 9 or 10, that what we know is that when you start going less than that, when you go into the 4, 5, 6 hour range, there are significant impairments to all levels of your body, from the brain to the, the physiology, even down to the DNA, which we will discuss as well.
I got to get my sleep. No
Yes.
doubt about it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
All right. We are going to take a break. We're going to come back. And are those alpha waves, by the way?
When you're sleeping,
Yeah.
delta.
Delta? Okay. I don't know where I got alpha.
It's kind of like that daydreamy state, right?
Yeah, maybe so. Okay.
Delta, theta.
All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more about sleeping as a superpower. Don't go away.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
All right, we're back. We're talking about sleep as a superpower here on Good Vibes. Debbie Cox-Danova is in the house, and she's giving us all the information we need. So you made an interesting point. You said sexually, with some of the men's, I guess, parts of their body.
Fertility, yeah.
They need their sleep.
Yeah.
Is 8 hours the really the maximum average, or in people, does it fluctuate from some people need 6, some need 10? Does it fluctuate?
It does fluctuate. Yeah. And so one thing to know about yourself is that whenever you go to sleep, whenever you naturally wake up without an alarm clock feeling refreshed, that's probably your sort of sweet spot. But like I said before, the research, a lot of research is done on that 8 hour mark. We do know that 8 hours is good for most people. And we do know that when she starts going significantly lower than 6 hours, you start to see compromises across all human beings.
Right.
So it's not like there is a window sort of like in there where it becomes just unhealthy for all human beings. And getting too much sleep is also another conversation where that also could be unhealthy as well. But sleep deprivation really is something that we were not built to withstand.
Well, like me, I'll go to bed around 9 average.
Yeah.
Then I'll wake up sometimes 2 or 3. And do a little meditating. But I don't get in a big dream state before that first round. But boy, when I get in that second round,
Yeah.
I guess I get into REM sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the significant thing to remember is that if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're having trouble going back to sleep, what Matt Walker says is you want to probably get out of bed. If you're struggling with sleep, you don't want to start creating the association between your bed and wakefulness. So it's kind of like he said, you think about it this way: you wouldn't sit at the dinner table to make yourself hungry, right? You wait until you're hungry, then you go and you sit down and you eat. So if you're finding yourself struggling in the middle of the night, first of all, you want to try to eliminate naps during the day if you're having troubles at night. But secondly, if you're having problems in between, go ahead and get up out of bed and go do an activity in another room until you get sleepy, and then come back so that the association into bed is strong. This is where sleep happens, right?
So drink a blueberry smoothie at 8:30 when you're going to bed at 9.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. So you start learning that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Now, there is a natural global sleep study that happens across 1.6 billion people in 70 countries every single year, twice a year. Do you know what it is?
Twice a year, a global sleep study. No.
Okay, so daylight saving time.
Wow. Okay.
So this is really interesting research, okay? So in the springtime, when we lose a day, what they found is the next day, the incidence of heart attack goes up by 24%.
Really?
In the fall, when we gain an hour, the incidence of heart attack reduces by 21% the day after we gain that hour. And then they've also seen significant, the same sort of pattern with car crashes, road traffic incidences, and even suicide. So that 1 hour of sleep, loss or gain, actually has a statistical influence on the population. You gain an hour, you're better. You lose an hour, and you're not so good. And this happens every single year. So they've accumulated quite a number of studies to actually prove this. Isn't that crazy?
And your sexual functions, like you talked about in the first segment, are enhanced when you gain the hour?
I don't know if there's any
Check that
research on
study
that,
out.
but I'm going to go on a limb and say yes. Now, we also should talk about the immune system, because this is really, really important, okay? So you have these natural killer cells, which we talked about before, and the job of the killer cells, you can think of them as these sort of secret agents in your body, and their job they're really good at is detecting elements that are not supposed to be there, that are dangerous to the body, and going after them to eliminate them. So what you would hope for is a strong, virile set of natural killer cells. But if you have sleep deprivation, that is actually not what you have. And so they actually did a research, and they took a group of people, and just for one night, they limited their sleep to 4 hours. Do you know what the percentage of a decrease in immune function was the next day? Give me a guess.
60%.
70%. So this is actually really significant, because that's just one night of compromised sleep, and your immune system is tamped down by 70% the very next day. And so now they're making a strong association between sleep deprivation and certain types of cancer. So bowel cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer are just a few of them to name, that your risk of those cancers goes up with the decrease of your sleep. And it's becoming such a strong correlation now that the World Health Organization has actually classified late night shift work as a probable carcinogen, because you're disrupting those sleep-wake cycles. So if you're somebody who is actually working the hours, and I got to tell you, that's me sometimes, that you're gonna want to think about that, because it is actually listed as a probable carcinogen.
And I would think that your cells that are trying to keep your body going, the mitochondria are losing energy. They need to be re-energized.
For sure. The whole entire system. In fact, what they're finding now is just that in general, studies can say, the shorter that your sleep is, the shorter your life is. So short sleep just predicts all-cause mortality all across the entire thing. It actually even affects your DNA, which is the fabric of life itself, right? So they took individuals who typically got 8 hours of sleep and limited their sleep to 6 hours for 1 week. And what they found was that there was a distortion in the activity of 711 genes. Half of them were increased, half of them were decreased. The ones that were increased were associated with promotion of tumors, long-term inflammation, stress, and cardiovascular disease. The ones that were decreased all had to do with your immune system. So basically, this leaks into every aspect of your life. You want to get good quality of sleep.
Yeah, that's why I like my 9 to 5.
Yeah. Oh, regularity is perfect.
Nine
yeah.
to 5.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes if you got to go to a wedding at night or this or that, but On average.
as much as you can and stay regular.
There you
even
go.
through the weekend.
Great topic.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So get the 8 hours.
Yes.
And a lot of things start working.
Yes.
All right. We'll take a break. We'll be back next week. Debbie's going to have another topic. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll learn next week. And we'll see you again in another episode of Good Vibes.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.